Today's reading for the collective is channeled, but it's also an accumulation of intuitive guidance that's been present in my life throughout my life. From my parents to my classmates to my friends, my partners in my life, everything that has allowed me to be the vessel through which this comes through. And I say this because in our heart chakra is where we store our love language. Everything that we know about love is present there. Be it beautiful, be it at times love, it does hurt to care for people, to care for other living beings, to care for ourselves. But that is part of our love language. So within this, there is a very clear message that is forming. And its basic seeds have been found in my readings with not defining using languages of masculine, feminine, but assertive, receptive. Because we all have aspects of this archetype within us. We are all consciousness observing our reality. That inner dialogue, the self-talk, that is not, masculine or feminine. It just is consciousness. It's aware. So the way that we relate with these aspects of ourselves can be receptive to assertive, or receptive to receptive, assertive to assertive, assertive to receptive. So we find ourselves needing to conform or encountering aspects within our society, within our culture, within our religion, where we are being defined as what is, receptive versus assertive, feminine versus masculine. And these aspects are pushed onto us, imprinted almost, taught. 1 + 1 = 2, basic things like this from the time we're very, very little. What it is to be feminine in the eyes of a masculine, or to be feminine in the eyes of another feminine. So you have pressure coming from both aspects placed upon you or projected onto you. And as a consciousness, you then make decisions about what you want to be, what you are, how it makes you feel, your own experience of what this is. In this message is to invite you to be your own storyteller, to change up the narrative, to not let these old systems define the story of your life and who you are and who you want to be. Because they're not working. They're causing so much pain and a sense of separation, because it's all built upon that false premise that we are separate when we're not. That happiness can only be found through isolation, through the exclusion of other versus the inclusion. Happiness is not found there. We are social creatures, human beings, not men, not women, human beings are social creatures. We are happier, healthier when we have strong community, strong connections with other human beings. Happiness is not found in separation. The truth is that we are not only interconnected, we're interreliant. And thus there is no other, only the beliefs that we empower by conscious choice. Once you become aware that you're choosing to believe X, Y, or Z, and you decide that it's not serving you to reach happiness, you can choose to change your story, to change the narrative, to begin to turn that tide within yourself. The story that we have been exposed to via spiritual, religious, racial, social, economic institutions, things that have been inherited over hundreds and even thousands of years. The question is, does this story inspire love? Does it make you feel like you can expand, that you're being empowered, that you're excited about tomorrow, that you're fully present in the now? Because why not? Every moment is amazing. You have so much to learn, so much to look forward to. If this is not where you are, then I implore you, I beg you, if I must, to rewrite the story of the narrative that you have inherited, to rewrite it and make it yours, to not be defined in this story by scripts given to you by others, because they are not empowering you as a consciousness to be unique, to be balanced in both assertive and receptive. One of the most relatable ways in which I can really bring this down to earth is the fairy tales that we're told as little kids, and how there are two sides to it. A lot of times it's really highlighted how, say, like Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Sleeping Beauty, it's all highlighted from one perspective of being, disadvantaged in it. And that's not true. Both men and women, as little boys and little girls, are not being treated fairly in these narratives that we are inheriting. For example, Cinderella, the prince, he never would have met her had the, fairy godmother, the divine, fate, destiny not intervened, right? So the love of his life, his soulmate, he never would have met because he was the prince. So he had all the money, he had all the power, he knew how to reinforce that power and protect what was his, but he did not have his soulmate. He did not have his heart. And she wouldn't typically be found in his court for him to ever meet if destiny, fate, divine did not intervene in the form of a fairy godmother. So he was working so hard to provide this space because it was what his society taught him. And it was what he inherited, that to have the money, to have the power, was to have the best mate he could possibly have, was to have happiness. He was taught that this would be measured by her outward beauty, that was the first indicator of her worth because it would solidify her safety as well as his. And this is something that he carries with him, that he knows is needed to solidify the power and the safety of whomever takes this place, as well as any children, his parents, because he's the prince, so it would only solidify their position as well. This is not fair, because beauty is far more than skin deep, and it should be defined by what he finds beautiful and not what everyone else around him tells him is beautiful. He should be able to make this decision based upon his own desires, not what's projected upon him that he should desire. This is unfair, that his worth is only to provide this space, and had the divine not intervened in Cinderella, this would not have been realized. On the feminine side, we're familiar a lot with this side of the story. The one part that I will say is that it is projected that you need to be unsafe, disadvantaged, to toil, to struggle, to suffer, and to still choose to be a good person, someone of light, someone of love, someone who is open to the divine intervening in order to find that mate who will value that you're the soulmate. This is an unfair narrative that only when you have toiled on both sides in very different ways that are incredibly unfair can you find happiness, but it doesn't speak to maintaining it. At this point, the ball is dropped, and they live happily ever after. This is where the ball really gets dropped. There's no narrative, there's no structure laid out where he will be able to say, oh, like, say she's not the most beautiful woman in court, but God, he loves her. She's his heart. She's his everything. She's his happiness. And there are people in his court, his circle, that are like, we don't like this about her. We don't like that about her. She's his soulmate. Why does what they don't like hold any power? Because he has been raised to believe that in order to protect himself and her, that everyone around him must be okay with her presence in order to solidify his position and protect her and himself and their kids and his parents, like his most, closest people that he loves. Others' opinions of you are only that, their opinion. You do not need to take that on yourself and let it tell you who you are and dictate your story. And for her, she's put in a position where she can only be what she is. And there's such a love there, but because others' opinions, however small, however insignificant, however shallow and egotistical, are a burden upon her mate. But she cannot be anything other than who and what she is. This narrative is not something that is spoken to. This narrative sets us up for a situation where happily ever after requires there to be a lot of work, and it affects everyone around us. So if you find yourself in this position, which is something that a lot of people long for, it is a leadership position. You are showing the way to many others what the narrative looks like from there. Because true love, someone who is your soulmate, will not turn their back on you because of someone else's egotistical, shallow opinion. They will own their leadership, their role. They are the alpha in their life. They are in control. And by alpha, I mean they are the leader that seeks to care for those that look to them for leadership. They are not greedy. They are not there to hurt, to harm, to force others to be submissive. In loving his mate and accepting all of who she is, even if others find her imperfect, he is affirming that he loves and accepts everyone within his vicinity for who they are. If they are open, if they're receptive, this allows the female in this dynamic to own her assertive power and then be able to open and be receptive and assertive with giving and receiving love and light with everyone around him, because he has made sure they know she's not negotiable because he loves her. and because he loves her. And they respect him. They thus respect her. Now, some people may not accept this because they're not in control of him anymore. They may come around, they may not, but that is their story that they are telling themselves. This is a classic story of a soulmate relationship coming together against all odds. There are other dynamics present within the other fairy tale stories, and I can cover them later if you guys want me to. Let me know in the comments below, because they all have a little bit of a different touch to them. Because part of why people do not get past this point is because they don't know how to do what's past this point. It is the two of you choosing each other to love one another and to act that way, not just say that and model that, which opens the door for others around you to learn and give and receive love and light as well. There is so much healing that happens around a couple like this, and everyone around them deserves to have that light gifted to them. But that couple has to choose each other over, anything egotistical, anything that's shallow, any obstacle that is something that could be overcome. The divine is present within this, the fairy godmother. So I invite you to be the storyteller, to write your own story and not be defined, to look at the men and the women around you with compassion from their side, because it's never just sexism one way or misogyny one way. The men around us, as well as the women around us, have been given an unfair story that takes their power from them. And you may be met with a bit of resistance because you're going to be approaching this situation in a different way than anybody else has ever approached them. And I know this because I encounter this in basic interaction. When I go out into my community, for example, I went to my gas station. I pull in, I'm in a vehicle, I can wait. There's a gentleman who is crossing where I need to be to pump gas. And he looks up at me, and he looks down at the ground right away, like he's a bit ashamed because he thinks I'm going to be mad at him. And then he looks back up at me, looks straight ahead, and just focuses on where he's going. Now, my heart hurt for him in that moment because somebody somewhere made him so sure, so consistently, that I, being, me, a female, he could easily see that I would be angry with him. Of course he would have right of way. Of course he has a right to occupy that space and not be fearful of his safety. But people have made him feel like he was in the wrong. And I was angry on his behalf because that's not okay. That's not okay. So I know that this narrative is something that is so chronic because on both ends of that interaction, we both were dealing with I can't believe that on the, like my side of it, that women had treated him this way so consistently. I was angry on his behalf. I was. So this stuff is everywhere. And when you contradict it, you put a bit of seed of light out there. You give somebody hope. And if they don't quite know what to do with it at first, that's fine. The more people that do that, the more people that affirm that in even these little interactions that they have a right to occupy that space and not be yelled at, not be looked down on. The more light that will be present, the better we will treat everyone, the more aware we will be of how much power we have to positively impact the lives of others, no matter how fleeting or passing by it may be. We are all connected, and this message is definitely about being willing to write your own story. And know that whatever light you put out, it comes back to you. It comes back to you amplified. And the more that you choose light, the more the scales balance, and the more you balance. And the more that a story like this, you'll understand what comes next. You'll have confidence that you'll find your way because you are balanced. And because you've seen it work, you've seen it happen. I do hope that some found this message inspiring. There is more to come as I'm guided to. And if you do want to know more about the different aspects of the other fairy tales, because they are different, I do ask that you leave that in the comments below. And when I say namaste, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I honor the divine in you. The divine in me honors the divine in you. We all have the ability to be our own storytellers, to craft how we choose our story to be. And I honor the divine within you. The divine in me honors the divine in you. And this, to me, is the spirit of what namaste is. I am very grateful to each and every one of you who listened to this message. Thank you.